the successful ones say, all I want is 3 minutes and I want your advice. I'm not calling to sell you anything. Then you get a lot of advice. And the ones that do that have a lot of success. I'm Mark Hasebroock, and I'm with, of course, my co-founder, Jennifer DiMotta, and we're talking today about talking to your customers. You know, the other day, I was talking to a founder of a company. They're about $15 million in revenue.
Hmm.
Last year, they were about 13 and a half. The year before, they were about 12. And they're forecasting maybe 15 this year. And I said, what's going on? I mean, what you guys had a decent clip, not eye-popping. Oh, I don't know. You know, there's this and that and the weather and COVID and excuse department stuff left, right, and sideways. And a customer quit. And so then we got these other things going on, and I don't know. And I said, wait, let's back up. What do you mean a customer quit? Yeah, they just decided not to use us anymore. Oh, when you called them, what did they say? And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, when you called them, what did they say? He goes, well, I didn't call them. They just sent me an email and said, we're just not going to renew and thanks. And it was kind of eye-popping to me on that front because, you know, you learn so much talking to your customers. And when growth starts to stall, I guess I want to ask you, when you see that happening, where does that fit in the equation with just inquiring with your customers what's going on?
Yeah. And we've talked about this a couple times, but we really haven't dedicated a full podcast. And it's just something we see with every client. And I would equate learning from your customers to this. So if you need to drive from New York to Phoenix and you've never done it before, why would you do that without a GPS? Why
Yeah.
would you do that without a map? And that's exactly the same thing. When you are not actively listening to customers, it doesn't matter if you're pre-revenue, if you're 5 million, if you're 50 million, if you're,
Yeah.
500 million. Listening to customers is invaluable. The thing is, there's different ways to listen to customers these days. And some of them, it's really more the proximity in which you're listening to your customers, in my opinion. And
That's
this is
great.
what
Yeah.
I'd love to talk to the founders more about that are listening here is, some of us listen to our customers through the data. But there's kind of a distance there in proximity because you are reading it through demand or through, whatever, reviews and stuff like that. And then ratings, customer reviews, which is what a lot of founders and entrepreneurs need to listen to now, is really a rich set of data. But I can tell you that just about every founder I've ever talked to does not spend time looking at customer reviews. Or if they do, they're not spending the time to understand what the insights are and then making decisions from those insights. And then the closest way to me to really talk to your customer is to talk to your customer. Like, it's
Just talk
very
to your
simple.
customer.
Like,
Right. Right.
talk to them on the phone. Some of our best clients are founders with a storefront. Why? Because they are right there, right 2 feet from their client having conversations, and they get
Yeah.
the most insights. And if you just don't have a storefront, to your point, that's okay. Pick up the phone and call the
They're
clients.
shocked, right?
Yeah.
I followed up a couple weeks later with this guy, and he said, I learned more from 10 phone calls that I make than in 2 years of internal meetings and PowerPoints and decks and slides and examination and so forth. And part of that, he's got probably an internal issue he's got to face because nobody wants to give him bad news.
Hmm.
But when he talks to his clients, first of all, he said they were just, wow, you're not calling with a problem? No, just look, what can we do better? What do you like about what we're doing? I want to thank you for being a customer.
Well, that's the really nice part about talking to customers. They don't care if you're the CEO of your business. they're going to be honest. As far as they're concerned, they're the boss and they should be. And that's
Yeah.
exactly why you talk to them because they are your boss. And then you made a different point of learning. Learning is incredibly, it's the right verb, it's the right thing to do with customers. You don't need to make every decision and spin your team out of control by all the different anecdotal pieces of feedback you get from customers.
Yeah.
But learning and finding the trends and the insights you can never get without also picking up the phone or talking to your customers face to face in some way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
What have you seen on the side of like you work with a lot of tech and SaaS type companies? How do they touch base with their customers? How do they get that feedback?
The successful ones do just what you say. They call and they just, it's harder because some people just say, things are fine. Don't worry about it. But the ones that just take 3 minutes, and if you preface it that the successful ones say, all I want is 3 minutes and I want your advice. I'm not calling to sell you anything. Then you get a lot of advice. And the ones that do that have a lot of success. The ones that send out a survey, it's well-meaning, and sometimes if it's broad enough across a wide variety, you actually get some interesting information. But if you have 10 or 12 customers, it's not that hard. It's
Yeah.
not that hard. Yeah. And so those are the ones that just say, I'm just going to take the time. Sometimes it's just, hey, this is so and so, the founder. I just want thanks. I want to thank you for your business. You know.
You know, you had asked me the other day, what are the signs of founders that aren't listening to their customers? What
Hmm.
are the easy signs there? And I, you know, you had even thought of a few of them, but let's just point those out is number one, you know, you're selling something, right? You're selling a product or service. So as you're evolving that product or service, maybe adding products, maybe adding services, maybe making modifications, we see those evolutions when they don't work out. It's very apparent they weren't going back to the customer first before they made
Hmm.
those
Yeah.
evolutions.
Yeah.
That's probably number one, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the other signs that you've seen?
You start to see that the customers don't respond.
Yeah,
So, hey, you got a few minutes, and it's just radio silent, and so it becomes, uh-oh, what's happening here? Um, you start to see maybe that the folks making the decision have kicked it to someone else, and the relationship is no longer there. And you start to wonder, geez, who am I dealing with here? This is starting to fall apart. And no disrespect to whoever they kicked it to, but when it starts to get ignored, there should be flashing red lights.
that's so
And so,
true.
yeah, the ones that get out in front of that and go back to the original decision maker and just have that conversation way in advance of when the contract is supposed to be renewed, and come with fresh ideas. Because back to the example of this one founder I was talking to, he said he got feedback from those 10 calls. Hey, you guys haven't come up with anything new in a long time. And the pace at which this industry moves, it's concerning. So we started looking elsewhere, including creating our own, including AI tools, including, Claude or anything else. And so he's got, wow, okay, let's circle the wagons here and figure out how we respond to this. And then he was able to figure out, well, here's some features these people actually want. And they weren't shiny penny things, they were legitimate. So, getting back to that decision maker and not waiting till that contract is 48 hours away from renewal.
Yeah. And you know, I that you're talking B2B, and that is really important, right? Because you're usually hanging your hat on a few customers that are bringing in a majority of your revenue. So you better be
Yeah.
listening to them. You know,
Yeah.
it's really critical. And then when you're on the B2C side, and let's say you have thousands of customers, that's still no excuse. You
Right.
find customers in different buckets. Some of the best customers, who's spending the most with you, who can you call?
Yep.
And they're going to love hearing from you, by the way. There is nothing more cool than hearing from the CEO and or founder from a place where you are consistently making purchases. That is
Yeah,
a neat experience for them too. And then, calling somebody who's maybe a first time buyer, why'd you decide to buy from us? So that you
great.
can understand there may have been a switch
Yeah,
that
such a great
you,
question.
right?
Yep,
And the other thing is, and you talk about this all the time, is how can AI play a role in supporting you in understanding your customers better? Well, we talked about like those different distances. I mean, at the end of the day, financials and all of your data do explain how your customers feel about you.
yep,
People are spending money where they want to spend their money. So, and
right.
spending it on products and services that serve them. So if you uploaded reviews, ratings,
Yeah,
financial data, and then all the anecdotal conversations, I think AI could probably do a pretty darn good job about getting you to trends and insights. And that becomes leverage for any
it does.
given founder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it allows you to really take that time, whereas you probably had an employee that was supposed to be doing that. I think what I'm seeing is that the speed with which you can take all of those different data points and utilize them meaningfully, almost like, what does all this mean? Give me some real feedback here. And and back to the guy that had the some a little bit of cultural, we're afraid to tell, the boss he's not wearing any clothes, you know. I don't think AI cares about that stuff. It allows you to ask more pointed questions and then also really, really, truly understand the information, so you've got 100 data points and it comes out as, well, here's what this means. You then have insight that allows you to better position the conversation with your customers. And it shows that you're thinking of them, you're way out in advance, and it's a dialogue. It's not just transaction. And I think that's really going to play an important part, particularly in any SaaS, because SaaS is, man, it's under fire. You got people saying, okay, this is interesting, but can't I just do this myself now? Why do I need this? So help me connect the dots. Um, I think it really helps you with the retention of those customers to show that you've thought it through. You connect it for them, you show that it's actionable, and you become your term leverage, you become the leverage for them because they're like, I've got to work with these people. This is too important.
Right. I mean, to your point, the red ocean is real. It's real across a lot of avenues. And so, what's going to be your biggest differentiator?
Right.
Listening to customers is going to be a differentiator. And if you don't quite believe it, there are plenty of stats out there that show that. I remember when I worked at Sports Authority, we drew up a 3B HEGS, essentially revenue and net profit, and employee satisfaction, and our customer NPS.
Mm-hmm.
What we did was we measured the performance of the business when the customer's NPS was higher versus lower. The
Mm,
the gap was dramatic. The amount of
mm.
margin that we make on the customers with a higher NPS is insane. The amount of lifetime value on customers that have higher NPS is
Really
insane.
interesting. Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, yeah, there's a direct correlation. So, for any of those out there that say, well, listen, I know best and my customers will follow along, well, that might be partly true, but take a listen to your customers and see if it validates your
Yeah.
direction. Maybe you
Yeah.
just need to turn the dial just a tiny bit to support the customers. But the reality is it will come through in the numbers. And your client with, sort of the flat 15 million, I bet anything, if they go back to the well, they look at the customer feedback, they find more customer feedback, they can lift that, right? They can go from 15 to 17 or 15 to 20 or whatever it is, simply by making decisions at the source. And
Yeah.
that is from the customer data.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. And tying in those relationships to make it more human as well.
Yeah.
Uh, it was interesting to hear. This was another conversation, but um, one founder asked one of his as actually her customers, how'd you get into your business? And the client was just like, well, oh, it's funny you should ask. Well, here's my backstory, and I don't have a lot of time though. Okay. But I'll tell you a few things. 45 minutes later, you know, that is tremendous value. It has nothing to do with the value prop or anything else. It's just like these are two humans and they wanted to share that story. And you get a deeper connection with your customer that way. Anything you can do to find those small advantages to stay in front, because as you know, the cost to acquire a customer these days,
Huge.
it's enormous. And to
Yep.
then just have an email come across and say, hey, we're not going to use you guys anymore. Thanks for everything. Good grief. It costs tens of thousands of dollars to get customers in some cases.
Correct.
So
Yes.
invest in the customers you have. And also when you're starting to think about, oh, we've got to really, really scale this thing, talk to your customers first.
You made me think of something here. So I was talking to a long-term client who serves the businesses. So it's a B2B format and it's a service. And I remember recommending that they do client surveys, satisfaction surveys, because they weren't doing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he said, you know what? I call my best clients and they say we're amazing. So I don't think there's really a need. And I
Mm.
said, "Well, have you ever asked them that if there's one thing that can be improved, what would that one thing be? Or have you ever asked them if there's something else that you could do to serve them? What would that thing look like? Have you ever kind of poked at that a little bit?"
Yeah.
He said, "No, you're right. I mean, I generally just ask the question, how's it going?" So
Yeah.
if you
There you
get
go.
on the phone with a client, go a little deep,
Yeah.
try to get to it's good to get on the phone with a client who's happy.
Yeah.
The reality is there's got to be something there that you can
So true.
find and learn. And
That's
yeah,
why the
that
best founding teams, there's a sales founder and a technical founder, at least in a tech company, right? Because no disrespect, but the technical co-founders are not good in front of people generally. And they have this, I know what's best. You generally don't. And the salespeople are good listeners if they're good.
yeah,
They're good listeners and they can pick up on those signals. Oftentimes, that old story of Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, going into one of the stores and listening to one of the managers explain an idea for what became the Big Mac. And if he would have just said, "Look, I know what's best for everybody. You don't. This is how we do things. This is the way we're doing it." He kind of, I'm elaborating a little bit, but like this is there's something here. So picking up on those nuances where the people on the front lines, back to your folks in the brick and mortar, they can look those people in the eye like, why are you here? What could we do to make this better? And by the way, thanks for being a customer. I mean, it makes my day.
I
It
love that.
goes so far.
It does go far. So, you know what, we're going to wrap this up. And so I think some of the things for you guys to think about are the ways in which you acquire customer feedback. Of
Yeah.
course, look at your data. It is customer feedback and it should be a place from where you make decisions, but go a little bit further. Now look at real reviews, real ratings of your business, and then go even deeper. Try to get
Yeah.
face to face or a phone call, whatever format works for both the client and yourself. And then pull all those things together and make better decisions in the future. Correlated, it will turn into business growth.
There we
So
go. Love it.
hopefully you guys learned a lot from what we just talked about, and we'll see you later.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Like us, subscribe. We got more stuff coming.